We've had floods before, definitely, but nothing like this.
We're gonna have to weather these storms on our own.
To see us come together as a community and put aside our differences.
With hurricanes, we know that they shift and change right up to landfall. So we were monitoring the weather, but we also were really trying to make sure we were doing preparation, directing the Public Works Department to clean storm drains. We were deciding where we were going to have our emergency operations center, getting our state of emergencies established and those things.
We get through the council meeting, then the latest update comes out. I think it came out like 5 or 6 p.m. This is probably going to be the storm of the century. And so at that point, it was kind of all hands on deck. We had 48 hours before expected impact.
As the storm got closer, probably within the last 24 to 48 hours, we started getting a lot more intense conversations with the National Weather Service. And so they were saying things like, this reminds us of the 1916 flood. And of course, none of us were present during the 1916 floods, but hearing that, I knew that it was going to be a significant event.
Where are we going to locate our EOC? And we had just opened our Fire Station 1 construction project. And so typically we would have been at our City Operations Center. We've got a lot of resources there. It's got a large room. It's kind of secluded away. We could operate there pretty effectively and efficiently. Luckily, we decided to move to Station 1, also centrally located, a little smaller, but it did have more capacity for beds, redundant internet, and things like that. And that decision paid off in spades as our City Operations Center flooded, actually. So the Operations Center is well outside of the floodway, outside of the 500-year floodplain. And the water came all the way up and got into that building, so it was well beyond what anyone could have expected.
Like, we knew that a storm was coming, but storms happen. And then I think into that Friday morning was really the first time that I kind of was conscious of how bad it could be.
That Friday, I came in very early. It's probably here about 4 o'clock in the morning in the EOC, and the calls started coming in, and they were one after another, and it was for the first 24 hours. I mean, we were just slammed with calls for service because it was down trees, it was flooding. We'd already had flooding 24 hours before the storm actually hit. And so this, the storm only made things obviously worse for us.
The most difficult was working with fire and law enforcement in communications with people that were in low-lying areas that we knew were going to flood, that we were begging them to leave their homes, to get out, and they failed to do so, and then going back, knowing full well we were going to go back and recover dead bodies. And that unfortunately came to fruition. So that's the struggle, is because you knew that things were going to get really, really bad, and you not only did, there were some home addresses that we went to not once, not twice, but 3 and 4 times saying, please leave. We have shelters. You need to leave. Go stay with a friend if you don't want to go to shelter. And they failed to do so. And then full well that one of the first things you do as that water starts receding is to send a boat crew to that house, anticipating a fatality. So
the thing that really hit me was when we were sitting down in the one on King Street, and we realized that we weren't going to have groceries and anything to any of the grocery stores unless the bigger folks. This was Tommy Lauder working with Chuck Edwards' office, started trying to get in a huge generator to push the Ingalls distribution center, that we could literally run out of food and have the fights over food. And then the gasoline, there wasn't going to be any gasoline, not just to push cars, to get cars to go, but to help all the trucks that were trying to get trees down and everything. And that was kind of one of those slaps that this is very real. And then when all the comms went down, that was wild, and everybody started scattering, looking for Starlinks and trying to come up there. Even satellite phones didn't seem to be that helpful. So those pieces kind of make you realize just how real it is.
We went over in the Green Meadows area, and I saw the flooded homes. When I saw on the news Lincoln Circle, and there was just rooftops, you know, I was like, wow. I was wondering, did anyone succumb to that? I mean, how many survivors? So it was those type of things, but that area most of all was very upsetting, even though other areas around here had fallen trees and water down, but to see the amount of water that had gone through there and the damage had done, that was very disturbing.
The most challenging moment was when we lost total communication to the outside world. I mean, you know, or when I say outside world, really outside the room we were working in, because at that point we were not able to communicate with anybody, whether it be our peers at Henderson County, whether it be the state, or our own staff who were out in the community when the cell phones went down, went dark. Those were really challenging. Also, being able to communicate back to family members, to check on them, to let them know how. I think the loss of communication really, you know, made us feel like we were on an island, and okay, we're on our own, and how are we going to serve our residents and respond to our residents.
Our texts weren't going through, my phone switched over to SOS mode, and then I was like, oh my gosh, now what do we do? You know, and everybody at Station 1, even though the situation was frantic and scary, very scary for me, they all just kind of kept rolling.
Under the instant command system, you have to place people in roles to serve a variety of functions, and these may be roles that folks have never served in, or maybe outside of their day-to-day jobs. And so, as part of my job working with our team, we were able to place people with very specific skills and strong skills in various roles where we felt like they would flourish and really help our communities.
We were expecting some downed trees, power outages, things like that. We never expected all of the cellular communications and all of our internet communications to disappear, and to be kind of left in that world where you're literally trying to find somebody to relay important information to them. Now it would come and go. Radio was good, so we fell back on radios. We didn't have enough radios. Luckily, we got different satellite communication devices, from phones to internet, satellite, and things like that. And we had some providers like T-Mobile showed up with cellular on wheels, which was great for us. That really helped us through the ebbs and flows.
The call center was long days. We were working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. just answering phones and getting information from people. And there were a lot of phone calls from people trying to get in touch with their relatives that lived in the area. And so we had several different spreadsheets that we had set up that we were putting all of their contact information and their concerns in. And then the EMS folks were reviewing those sheets and either taking people's supplies or going to do welfare checks on the family members that we couldn't get a hold of. It was eye-opening.
The city team came together amazingly. I went to some of the morning and afternoon sessions where all the department heads and division heads came together, just sharing what they'd been doing, folks that did jobs that were not in their job description, just filling in wherever possible, where they were needed. They were there and were certainly willing to do it.
What people thought of other people's opinions or things before the storm happened, like people that were not getting along before the storm happened, it didn't matter. if your neighbor needed you to come and chop down a tree in their yard, then people were showing up. If your neighbor needed a meal and you somehow had food or electricity, you would cook it for them. I mean, there were just neighborhoods all around the city that were doing block parties with all the food in their freezer before it went bad, and they were cooking it on a grill. And so it was just truly remarkable to see how quickly the community came together in that moment to get through the disaster.
You know, folks came together very quickly within the first couple days and helped each other out, and there was a lot of love within the community. People were feeding each other. And then so, you know, we went through a cycle where, you know, once that dies down a little bit, some of the bad actors try to come in and take advantage of folks. But the amount of outpouring of support from all over the country was almost more than we could manage. I mean, we were having to turn some things away because people were trying to do so much to help us.
So it was good to see as people came out of the floodwaters that were wet. They had few possessions with them. They had their animals with them. They had their scattered family. Seeing people in the community come out and give them blankets and chairs and offer them food was heartwarming.
2 large box trucks arrived filled with diapers and food and batteries, and then that daily shipment of box trucks didn't stop for weeks. And that was just our little Catholic church, but all the other churches were doing the same thing, and little neighborhoods were doing the same thing. So it was really remarkable what friends and neighbors were doing for each other, and just really gave me hope for people and humanity and what people will do when traumatic and scary things happen.
The fact that everyone put their dislikes aside and looked at each other as family members. There was no racial barriers, no language barriers, none of that. It was just people helping people.
We had been preparing for years, and all of those preparations, I think, helped us so much that we were able to still deliver services and safety and confidence from our community, which I think made a humongous difference for our community.
The dedication that was and knowledge that our staff brings to the system, we couldn't have done what we did without them. Most proud of how Hendersonville, which includes utility staff and council members and the community. A lot of the reasons why our system was so successful in the restoration of services after the storm was due to the work that we've been doing for decades, making the investments in the utility system, building those resilient systems. And it's not cheap to make these upgrades, but the value that Hendersonville has in its water and utility system is something that a lot of forethought was put into that. And I don't know if that's the same everywhere, but again, that investment in infrastructure is a very important thing, and Hendersonville has been doing that for a very long time.
We practice Incident Command System, which is a national, natural disaster emergency response planning protocol, and I've been, preaching the importance of that for a couple of years now, and I think people now see, oh yeah, that is kind of important, and we do need to focus our efforts on that. And so, as a city, we're getting better at, at planning and managing critical incidents, and so I'm glad to see that we're doing that. I would say as a lesson learned that you need to build relationships with people outside of your immediate area. That's hugely impactful, because for us in Western North Carolina, Helene impacted some 30 some odd counties in Western North Carolina, so we couldn't call our immediate neighbors to help us out because they were affected just like we were. And so we had to really reach out far and wide to our network, to our friends in other parts of the state to help us out.
I could not be more proud of how our organization, how our community handled the storm, came through the storm. Everyone did it with class. It was hard work. I'm just proud to be part of this organization. I'm proud of the people that we've put into the City of Hendersonville. I couldn't ask for a better group of elected officials. The mayor and the city council were solid as a rock. They led their community through the storm, literally and figuratively, through the storm, and now they're leading us through the recovery.
The leadership of our city council throughout the centuries and has been tremendous, but just in that event, having our city council and our mayor present, they were there the entire time, and they were demonstrating what it meant to be a servant leader.
I just want to thank all the employees, management team, everybody that was involved, went way beyond what was expected of them. And I just am in awe of everything that was done. And I think the community can count on it to continue in the future.
I am probably the most proud of our staff because I don't think everyone was as prepared as we were here in the city of Hendersonville, and I don't think that everyone had the ability to have such dedicated staff as we had.
Now, I've lived a long time and I'd never seen anything like this. Being able to step up and really execute well, I thought we were second to none. I was proud of every single person that was a part of that room every day and was a part of the going out and making the calls. The water department going out and finding leaks and getting the water going in an incredibly short period of time.
I think something that I have felt recently as time goes on and we get further away from the visceral part of this experience is that it's easy for us to diminish it or to think, well, we came out of it and so now we can move on, and we should move on, and there are parts of it that we will move on from. And there are also parts of it that I want to keep close and that I think really identify and serve us as a community. And so I think it's important that we acknowledge and remember the community members that were lost first and foremost. The way that we came together to show up for each other, and the knowledge that we can do that because we did it and we watched each other do it and we held each other through one of the hardest things that many of us can imagine. And it changed a lot of us, and I hope that the good parts of that stay with us and that we can tap into that when we start to feel this disconnect from each other, that we can remember that we have been through really hard things together and we have come out of them together, and we can do that again.
It's a great opportunity for us to just be proud of who we are as a community and as a city.
Hendersonville Strong.
Hendersonville Strong.
Hendersonville Strong.
Hendersonville Strong.
And we're Hendersonville Strong.